Greetings. I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. We know you could be anywhere. So the fact that you are here today sharing your time and energy with us means the world to me. I hope you know that you are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. As you can see, I'm not alone. We have Janna Joyner back in the house. What's going on, Janna?
Hey. Thank you for having me again.
I mean, geez, I've got text messages like best episode ever. My favorite parts are when Janna was talking. Less Tom, more Janna. It's like, oh, my friends are so nice.
And so you had to bring me back. I love it.
Yes.
Tell your friends to thank you. Tell your friends I said thank you.
But it was genuinely, it felt great. Like a great, okay, this is what I want the podcast to be, these kind of conversations. So
yeah,
I agreed with them.
Also, I do too. I love when we get a chance to do this because I feel like we could talk literally for days.
Yes, agreed. Anything you want to share before we turn camera off? Anything you want to share with the good folks about anything that is visually specific that they need to see?
No. I mean, my glasses are, pretty fun. I'm wearing my lucky lip today. This is the lip that I wore on my husband and I's first date. I wore this when we got engaged and I wore it on our wedding day. So it's my lucky lip.
And what shade is it?
It's a lip stain, Kat Von D Bauhaus 5. It's discontinued. So I use it very, very sparingly. But
might some call it pink?
Oh, it is pink. Okay. Sorry. It's like a fuchsia, actually. I would say a fuchsia. Didn't know if we had any makeup lovers on.
A lot of people got what you were saying, and then for the rest of us,
for the guys, they're like a lip stain, whatever that is.
I like how you call out both things. I was like, I think that your glasses look super cool, and I like how your jacket matches your lipstick. I was like, we got to give a shout out to the good folks out there. So you called out both things but I always feel like awkward, like as a guy being like, and I really like the way you look. Like, it's like, I don't know. So it's like, I always try to ask questions and people can say it themselves if they're so inspired. So I like how that worked out.
That was good.
And I have my customary Wisconsin sweatshirt on of the Bucks and Giannis, and my mom got me this long before people really knew who the Bucks were, before we won our first championship since the 70s. So, and I wear it because it's comfortable. But whenever people come up to me and try to talk about basketball, I'm always like,
You are the only Milwaukee Bucks fan I know.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
probably because it's a team you like if you're from there,
right? Right.
You don't like them because of the colors. It's like there's not.
I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't like them, but I guess I don't know anyone from Milwaukee. So there we go.
It's true. We're not like good enough, except for that one year where people like hate us. Like the Lakers. It's like I hate the Lakers because they probably beat your team enough times.
Right. Exactly. You'll get there. You guys will get there.
There we go. Thanks to Giannis. Okay, that said, why don't we go camera off? We can turn off our ring lights and that kind of stuff.
Alrighty.
Relax a little bit. I got myself some yerba mate I'm going to be drinking as we talk.
Okay, I got my water here.
There we go. All right. Well, what's been going on since the last time we talked? Or, we got the new year starting. How do you go into the new year? Is it just another day in the calendar, or do you how do you kind of approach a new year?
I approach a new year as if the entire world is starting over and it's a completely fresh start. And That's none awesome. Of my problems from the past year are coming into this year. And, my therapist actually is trying to get me to stop thinking that way. But she's like, that's unrealistic. It's just a day. And, your problems will be problems, things will carry over from the previous year. It's just life. And so don't look at it as like a hard stop and then a reset, but find ways to just carry over some of the good things you want, the good things you want to bring from 2022 into 2023, and just be intentional with how you want to do things differently, knowing it is the start of a calendar year, but life is still life. And so you can't expect everything to be different. So I guess that's kind of how I'm approaching things as we begin the new year. It's like, yes, this is a fresh start, but also I can't expect for all of my challenges from the last year to just go away just because it's a new year. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm trying to find the nuance because I get that sounds like the kind of advice a therapist would give.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to see if this is why when I switched therapists, my therapist was like, okay, let me tell you, you're kind of you kind of push me. Because I was interrogating my opinion. So I'm like trying to like taste it to see.
Yeah. So, okay, I can use an example. So, one of my big things for 2023 is follow through. Okay. And I feel like one of my struggles from last year was that there were so many ideas I had and so many things I wanted to do, and I would start them, I would get excited, and then they would just kind of go by the wayside. And so I'm like, this year I'm going to follow through, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to let any of my ideas, go incomplete. And she was like, okay, that's great that you have this, new mindset, but don't think that just because, the clock now it says January 1st, 2023, that you're still not going to have some of those same habits that you had that prevented you from following through. Maybe you should examine where your bandwidth is and why you're not able to follow through, and then just make steps towards reallocating your bandwidth. The reason you're not following through isn't because you're just this failure or you can't commit, but it's because your bandwidth is stretched and your attention is in so many different places. And so, focus on pulling bandwidth from certain places and allocating it towards these projects you're working on, instead of thinking that just because it's midnight now, you just have the capacity to execute every single idea if nothing else in your life has changed but the calendar date.
Okay, so it's less so
it's less new year, new me, and more of new year, how can I start making changes that will get different outcomes, knowing that it's a process and not something that happens when the clock strikes midnight.
And also what I'm hearing in there is kind of should that be a goal? Like follow through. And it sounds like the more you thought through it, it's like, actually, I don't have a follow through problem. It's a trying to do too much problem.
Yes, exactly. And so that is not going to change overnight just because it's now a new year. It's going to take time to figure out which things I can let go of, which things I can maybe delegate, which things are no longer a priority. And then I can shift my attention to other things so that I can see things through. Is that clicking more?
Totally does. I mean, first of all, thank you for being so honest and vulnerable and sharing with us conversations you have with your therapist, and then letting me ask follow-up questions.
Of course. I feel like everyone, I don't know where I would be without therapy. And so I think it makes so many conversations richer. So I'm always open to share my lessons wherever I can.
Because I think on face value, I think you can use any date to draw a line in the sand and say never again. And you'll you'll kind of like, oops. But I do think there's a difference in a decision where, like, for example, I've quit things. Like I quit drinking and I quit smoking and weed, not cigarettes. And I see people who then try it. Like whenever somebody tries to quit cigs and they say, I'm going to finish the pack first, I know they're not going to quit, because when you quit, you're just done. And you might like hop back and forth, but like there's a part of you that just makes like the word decision comes from the word decision, to cut off. So I think you can use January 1 as a decision, like done, never again. But the question that I think is a better one that I'm hearing you bring up is, but why does this need to be decisioned? And so if it's like, I need to stop not following through, it's like, but before you go chase that down, do you even have a follow through problem?
Mm.
And then the more you talk, you're like, no, you don't have a follow through problem. There's too many things to follow through on.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. And I think also, giving myself grace to say, I had a really, really, eventful 2022. I got married, we bought a home. I'm a bonus mom now, and my bandwidth was in so many different spaces on the personal front, and it's okay for that to be my priority. And so now it's like, okay, now how is my priorities shifting, and what do I need to cut off or cut back so that I have more time and energy to devote my attention elsewhere?
Yeah. This is to me the like spiritual question of life here. And it's like all of us experience this pressure. And it's a big part of it's a byproduct of the way we've evolved in relationship to technology. It's not that my life is as far as I can walk and my food source is within walking distance, and like most other animals, more or less the majority of my day is spent around finding food. And now I can be like, I want to make food such a minimal part of my day that I want it to just be in something that's in a bottle, has all the nutrients I need. It's in the fridge. I open that fridge. It takes me 30 seconds to drink it. I'm back to work, and I have the kind of electricity and communications tools where I can work 24/7 and be in touch with more people than I could ever meet in person. So it's like, okay, this is kind of like the spiritual thing, I think, is infinite possibility within a finite system. So what do you do with that? Because creation itself is infinitely expanding. And so we are creation. So we are infinitely expanding. But in this form, we have a finite amount of time to explore that infinity. And it can just create this like tension. It's like, I want to, within this finite version of infinity, do every creative idea and vision, and I just want to do it all.
Yeah.
Because it's like taste it, that my ideas will never end. But to get to the next idea, I got to implement. It's like, well, what do you do with that?
Yeah. It feels overwhelming. I'm not going to lie. The idea of, just infinite possibilities. It's like, it's for me, I get overwhelmed by too many choices. That's why I don't go to the Cheesecake Factory. Too many choices. And I think that it really does take some soul searching to know, okay, with all of these options, what is the best option for me right now in the space that I'm in? And where does my focus and attention need to be? Knowing that I have all of these options and so many possibilities, how do I drown out the noise and drown out what I see everyone else doing and decide what my own unique path is and what my own purpose and my own, my mission and my goal, and which ideas I'm going to execute on.
Yeah. And what you're bringing up for me too is the anxiety of decision making, when it can feel like you're deciding between a lot of great choices, and you can see how each choice will bring about its own series of possibilities. But there's uncertainty around which one could create the best of the best.
Right.
And if you get it wrong, then when we fill in the blank. But if I choose door number 3 and it gets all messed up, but if I had chosen number 1, then it wouldn't have gotten messed up. Then I should choose number 1. But I'm thinking number 3, but what if 3 is wrong and it was actually 2? Or what if it's a door I'm not even seeing?
Right. Yeah. And then you have that creates paralysis through analysis. Have you heard of that term?
Yeah. Paralysis analysis. Why don't you tell for the good folks out there who don't know though?
Very simply put, it's you spend so much time at analyzing the situation, analyzing options, and being caught up in your thoughts that you end up taking no action at all.
Mm.
Have you read Will Smith's book?
I did, yes.
The chapter where Quincy Jones, he's telling the story about how the Fresh Prince idea came to be, was so powerful to me because, and for anyone who hasn't heard, if you don't mind me just paraphrasing for a quick second.
You don't even have to paraphrase. Take as much time as you'd like retelling.
So Will Smith, he's early in his career. He gets a call from Quincy Jones to show up at this birthday party at this time at his Bel Air mansion. And Will Smith gets there, and Quincy Jones, he's had lots to drink. He's working the room, and Will Smith walks in and he's like, Philly, come over here. I got, idea I want to share with you. And he essentially pitches the concept of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And he wants Will to audition on the spot in the living room of his Bel Air mansion during his party where there's hundreds of guests, including, of course, all the heavy hitters in Hollywood. And Will Smith being, very early in his career, I think this may have been his first acting role. He was very, very, hesitant to just do an audition on the spot or in front of all of these people. And Quincy was so convinced. He was fully persuaded that this was the idea that was going to make it big. And Will Smith was talking himself out of the audition, talking Quincy Jones out of the audition. And Quincy pulled him aside and basically said, this guy over here is the head of the network. This guy over here is the, head of XYZ department. Pretty much, every single person who needs to say yes to this show is in this room right now. So you can sit and you can overanalyze and think about reasons why you may not be ready, or think about all the reasons why this will not work. Or you could just say yes, and we can make it happen right here and right now. Because if you pass up this opportunity, what can happen is this busy executive, he'll have meetings, and we'll never be able to get everyone else into this room again. We'll run into a million different conflicts, scheduling conflicts, and there'll be millions of reasons why people can't make it to see this audition and to really say yes to the show. But every single person right here, right now, who needs to say yes is in the room. So no paralysis from analysis. Like, let's just do it. And to me, I think that was so powerful. And that's something that I try to keep with me, because just like you said, there can be a million different options behind door 1, door 2, door 3. So many different possibilities. And we can just sit and think about reasons why we shouldn't do something, or reasons why something may or may not work. But sometimes you just have to do it. You just have to do it and see what happens. Just take action on one thing. And so that's why, paralysis through analysis, or paralysis from analysis, paralysis analysis, that is something that I really try to make sure that I'm not doing, as I go forward and execute these ideas that I have in this year of follow through.
I totally forgot that they mentioned that phrase during that story.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I didn't see that's where we were going. That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It was my favorite chapter. I make people listen to it because I did the audiobook. And so I'm like, you need to listen to this story. It's amazing. And yeah, paralysis analysis. It's sometimes you just have to go. You just have to do it. You do it afraid, do it, worried or unsure, but just do it.
One of the gauges that when we think of storytelling, one of the gauges you can use of was a story impactful is if you can remember where you were when the experience happened. It's why people remember Pearl Harbor, or you remember exactly where you were when you found out Obama won, or like any of these kind of things, And I remember exactly where I was when I heard that story. And that's how I'm like, you're right. That was a really powerful part of that book. So I think this is an interesting thing to kind of pull a thread on. So I think a lot of times what happens, because it's like, well, especially those of us who have this like big dream we've been working our whole life for. Okay. So it's like, yes, Will Smith seized the moment and he succeeded. But how do I know if this is my moment to seize? And what if it is? What if I fail? So let's say like two things. Let's say Will either says, I'm too afraid and doesn't do it. Okay. Or let's say he does it and he chokes so bad that he never gets another chance to audition for acting ever again. Right. He does it. He goes for it and he never gets to act because he messed up so badly. Because this is kind of where like the catastrophizers out there that we worry about analysis paralysis. Because it's like, what if this is my moment and I fail, and not just fail, but fail so bad that it ends my career? So like, what if Will auditioned and it was so bad that was it? He never, his career ended with his hip hop journey. What do we think about that?
I mean, I don't know what, I mean, what if I have no answer.
I think the question to ask is, would Will be happy?
No.
I don't know if we can answer that, because I could say now that we have the foresight of like, this past year's been pretty difficult to be Will Smith.
Yeah, very true.
Been pretty difficult. So what if, have you ever seen the movie Yesterday?
I haven't.
Oh, I don't want to give it away to people, but like basically it explores a famous musician who was murdered. And it was like, what if there was an alternative universe where they weren't famous, right? And so like a big culminating scene is somebody finds, I'm just going to give it away, I apologize everybody, they find John Lennon, and John Lennon was never in the Beatles, and they find John Lennon and he's like, tell me about your life. And John Lennon had this super happy life. So what if, so it's like John Lennon did something where he never got to be the Beatles. And to us, it's like, you mean you didn't get to be a part of the Beatles? Everybody knows his name. And he did not live a very happy life. So I don't know. It's like, if the goal is happiness, there is no failure that will ever keep you from happiness. If the goal is fame, notoriety, statues, success, achievement, accolades, good jobs, perfection, never failing, then it is true that you could make a decision that could F all that stuff up. You really could.
Yeah.
As we saw with Will Smith, I think he will bounce back. But like, I read that book, Will's on top of the world, and in 15 seconds, everything he built is different.
His entire, I mean, and he talks about in his book how he has carefully crafted his image. And I can only imagine how devastating for someone who has worked so hard to be viewed in a certain way for this one moment, to have it all come kind of tumbling down and everyone's calling that into question. I mean, one single decision can change all of that.
So I think it's helpful for us to recognize that you can make a decision that can ruin all of your goals forever. And so it's like, but what is your ultimate goal in life? If it is success, which is like the goal that we're kind of taught to have in a society that wants you to contribute towards capital, right? You are here to make money, to contribute to the economy. That's like the kind of what we're taught in this culture. Like, so if notoriety and all that stuff, you can mess it up. So you kind of should have anxiety. But like, if your goal is happiness or self-realization, or to learn how to be the like most authentic version of yourself, as complicated as that word is, because it's been co-opted by marketers like me, like, I don't think you could ever mess that goal up ever, because when it comes to that goal, every experience you're having in life is the experience you're meant to be having.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you know? Because you're having it. So so I think that's like the thing that I try to remind myself of. If it's like, oh my gosh, everything's burning down around me. And it's like, yes, and that's bad if like the material world
Mm-hmm.
and like this kind of like fictional version of yourself you've created is the goal. But if the goal is like an internal journey, you can never make a wrong decision.
I agree 100%. And I like to sometimes when I am having a tough time with where I am at any particular point in life, I try to think about, I play this game of like, if I hadn't done this, then this, wouldn't have happened or, and so I can give a very abbreviated version, but, I think about when I was in middle school, I auditioned to go to the governor's school in high school, and it was a school for dance. And I, danced a little bit, but not at the level of, people who've been, dancing all their lives and stuff. And so I didn't get in. And so I went to the public school that it was in my zone. And it was at that public high school where I met people who were all about going to James Madison University. And so I ended up going to James Madison University and I loved it. It was at JMU that one of my teachers told me I was such a great writer and that I could write for a magazine, I could be a journalist. And so I needed to move to New York. And so I moved to New York. And then, my life has gone, where it's gone. I moved to New York and I, get a job working as an intern at one of my friend's jobs. And then I realized that I could be a writer because someone at that position told me that, oh, you want to write, you could be good at marketing and, you could work at an agency. And so I found a position as an editor at a marketing agency. And once I started doing that, and I did that for a few months, and I was like, oh, I could do press releases. I could do social media, posting. I could do blogs. And so then I took on some clients at the agency. And so, and now my life is what it is now. But I'm like, if I had gotten into that governor's school when I was in 8th grade and I auditioned, my life would look totally different. Mm. And so I try to remember that when I'm having hard times, it's like, that was devastating, to go to, to not get into that governor's school was devastating. To move to New York, but not get a job at a magazine was devastating. But then I was able to get that internship and have that conversation with someone who suggested I work at a marketing firm as an editor. And, when the marketing firm laid me off, then it was devastating. But then I asked my mom if I could do social media for her business. I did that for a year. And then I was able to, apply for a job at the Girl Scouts because I had more than a year under my belt doing social media and digital marketing. And then, and so I'm like, every single disappointment set me up to be where I am today. And so if I am saying that, I want to build a life that I love, and I'm living a life that I love, then that doesn't come without those disappointments along the way. And so every single, where we are today is exactly where we're supposed to be. And we could not be there if it weren't for those moments that at the time felt devastating, felt like it was, the end of everything.
Mm. It's like the word I'm hearing you that I would use is like friction. Friction causes growth, not just for your muscles.
Yes.
And It's like, friction, like, oh, this is so not what I had envisioned. The next step would be, don't ruin my plans. What the hell? This was not in the plans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that emotional friction.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it's, you have to realize those are the things that are really character building, the friction, when things are easy. I mean, you don't learn much. You don't grow much. It's when it's really tough and it's really hard.
Yes.
The friction.
Yes, indeed. My friends, this is Tom here talking to you in post-production. This is not actually a part of the conversation that Janna and I had. I'm going to pause the episode here. We're going to split the rest into a second episode. In fact, you're going to get 4 episodes of Janna and I talking. We talked for a little over 2 hours, and I tried to keep an eye on time and say to Janna, okay, let's pause here and we'll do part 2 next. And I'm looking at the recording. I was just listening to it myself and saw that this first half, what I thought was a half hour, actually was about 55 minutes. So I'm going to split this into 2. So this ungraceful pause here, I apologize for it, but I have a big goal this year of putting out 30-minute episodes, for one, to see how you like it. And then also just for me, so that I have the capacity to put out episodes. So Janna, where can people get at you?
Yeah, Instagram. Janna M. Joyner is my Instagram account. Pop by, say hello. My own podcast, Forever Fun Employed podcast. I always love to hear from listeners. So if anyone listens and they, it resonates, shoot me a line on Instagram.
My friends, I want you to be sure to tune in next week. The very first thing that Janna and I reflect upon is mortality and our reflections upon that. So we jump in deep right out the gate. I really hope that you join us. If you want to be a part of our world, you want to learn how to share your stories and to connect with the people that matter most, we'd love to have you. You can learn more about that at tomearl.me/DCM invite. It's all in the link. Otherwise, we will see you next week. I usually like to ask my guests before they leave, what is your invitation? What would you like to have folks think about? Janna's not here with me to ask her, so I wrote down a couple of things she said during this episode that you just heard that I want to repeat for you. That can be kind of like an invite. So Janna said in this episode, you just heard it, every single disappointment set me up to where I'm supposed to be today. And if I'm saying I want to build the life that I love, if I'm living the life that I love, then that doesn't come without those disappointments along the way. Woof! That is awesome. So if you're in a disappointment, my advice is always to journal, to write down about it, because when you get to the other side of it, it's always like fasting for me in Ramadan. Even if I'm the most thirsty and hungry, as soon as I have that first date, that first glass of water, I like, wait, what did that thirst even feel like? So it's helpful to be able to go back and read the things, to reflect upon the things that you went through. All right. We will see you again next week for part 2 with Janna. As always, I appreciate you and I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.